You're on.
Okay, alright, cool. So 3 goals for this. 1, don't get bored. I really hope you don't get bored. 2, I hope you don't curse too much or at all, because I want to be a good influence.
Because he's from the East Coast.
Yeah, like I said, bad people. The people greeting me on the way in, that was lovely. They got their signs out there. Can't find that in Baltimore. And then 3rd, I want you guys to actually have questions at the end instead of just your teacher, because I don't want to stand up here and then, yeah, you guys not have questions. That would suck. I guess kind of first off, so I'm from a suburb outside Baltimore, Maryland. I don't say I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, because people are like, oh, like The Wire? And I'm like, no, not like The Wire. Am I dating myself? Does someone know what The Wire is? Okay. Great. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. Actually, a little sports, I guess. I was around when the Ravens were like created, so that was cool. It was like 1996 or something like that. So it was cool to get a football team. We had Vinny Testaverde, because I think he's played for everybody at one point or another. Went to usual middle school. For high school, I actually went to a Jewish high school in Baltimore, and we didn't have a football team. So I love the irony of the fact that I cover high school football, and I never experienced it at all. So after high school, my graduating class was like 32 kids. It was really bad. And I was like, screw this, I want to go to a big school. And my dad, he went to the University of North Carolina, and that's where I wanted to go. I grew up watching all the Tar Heels play, just basketball. They don't believe in football. Even though they're pretty good, I mean, they just don't care. That's kind of like the way it is on the East Coast and the ACC. It's like you're watching Duke, you're watching Maryland, you're watching North Carolina. And these were just like awesome rivalries. So it's a totally different from what you guys have here, probably. And so I didn't get into Carolina because I stink at taking standardized tests, I guess. So for me, it kind of came down to the University of Maryland or Indiana. And I was like, okay, I kind of want to get away from home. Like, I want to like do my own thing. Like, let's go out to Indiana, which is very similar to UNC. Lots of tradition, big basketball program. It's kind of like this cool, Bloomington is like this cool college town in the middle of Indiana. And so it's like everything is built around like the college. Like every place is open till 3, everything is super cheap. Like it's awesome. I had the time of my life. University of Maryland's great, just didn't really want to do it because there's so many kids from like my suburb of Maryland that just like either go to West Virginia or Maryland. West Virginia, also great for burning couches. I'm sure that would have been great. It just wasn't what I was interested in. I knew I wanted to go into journalism, but I really didn't think I wanted to go into sports journalism. I actually wanted to do politics, and my freshman year was 2008. So that was the first Obama election, or like race at the time. And so I walk into my intro to poli-sci class, and my professor's like, we're just gonna toss the whole curriculum. We're just gonna like cover this election. And everyone's like, okay, cool, that sounds like fun. Man, that whole class was just people arguing with each other, and I hated it. It was like just every day, just yelling at each other. I mean, I'm sure some of it was perfectly reasonable, like, informational discourse, like good stuff. But for me, that negative energy just really pulled me down, and I like left class going like, oh my god, I hate everything. Like this sucks. So I'm like, okay, Avi, you still like writing, like maybe you should go into something that makes people happy. I'm like, well, what makes people happy? What like brings people together? It's like sports. So let's try to do like the sports thing. So one of the most important things you can do is sign up for your campus media organization, whether it's like a TV station or a newspaper or whatever. At the time, I went with the student newspaper at Indiana, which is like really good. They win awards. People far smarter than I am are on staff there. My first beat was track and field. And it was like one of these deals where it's like, cool, I know nothing about track and field, this is gonna be great. And they're like, no, you're fine, just like, put in these little 250-word briefs and just call it a day. Like really borderline like minimal stuff. And I'm like, okay, well I wanna write like these longer features, which features just means like it's like a longer story, like you're concentrating on something and then you're kind of going more in depth with it. And so I started writing those and they were like, oh wow, you're actually pretty good. I was like, thank you, God, about time. And I got bumped up to women's basketball, so that was like my big promotion. It's like my sophomore year, I covered women's basketball. And they sucked, and their head coach was a maniac. She was crazy. Like they went like, I don't know, 9-20 or something like when I went. And like her post-game press conferences had nothing to do with the game. It was just like, it's in God's hands now. I was like, well, did God make your team turn the ball over 20 times? Like, how is this working? Yeah, she got fired. But anywho, so I was like covering the women's basketball team. Some of this stuff is, I just try to keep you entertained. So I was covering the women's basketball team, and then I'm like, okay, well, I really want to cover men's basketball. Because men's basketball at Indiana is like football at Texas, or football at Alabama, or football at pretty much any school outside the ACC or some of the Big Ten. It's huge, it's crazy. And so the way to do that is you actually become sports editor first, which is weird because the sports editor is like the men's basketball writer's boss, but it's easier to get sports editor because less people want to do it, if that makes sense. So I was a sports editor my junior year. And then between my junior year and senior year, something happened, which was really cool. So I'll preface it by saying this. Like one of my favorite sayings of all time, and if you take one thing from this entire like dealie that I'm doing, it's this, is the idiom goes, man plans and God laughs. And I love this so much. Man plans and God laughs. And it means that in life, you can think, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, and because I'm doing A, I'm getting this degree, I'm doing this class, then C is going to happen. That's bull. It is complete bull. So many things are going to happen in your life that you have absolutely no control over, and it is all about how you react to it. It is all about how you react to it. Because people are going to come up here and they're going to tell you to major in this, and they're going to tell you major in that, and take this class and talk to that person. Man, at the end of the day, you cannot plan for something. And I'll get to that more like as my story progresses, but I can't stress that enough. So a really cool thing happened between my junior and senior year of college, where I applied. So MLB.com, MLB Advanced Media, is in charge of every team website. So Orioles.com, Rangers.com, so on and so forth. They're all under the same umbrella of MLB.com, MLB Advanced Media. At the time, I'm not sure if they still do this, but they reserved one of 32 spots, right? 32 Major League Baseball teams? Okay, let's just say it is because I said it. 32 Major League Baseball teams, 32 spots, one intern. They don't like to use the word intern, the guest or associate reporter, whatever, per team. So hundreds of kids apply to this. They reserve one spot every year for an Indiana University student. Very fortunate they did that. There was one guy, and he was like a shoo-in. We were like, this guy's a senior, he's an all-star, like he's gonna get this internship, no doubt. He got a job offer in the second semester, like the later one, to work at NASCAR.com, because he was a big NASCAR guy because Indiana. So he took that, and although nobody actually told me this, I really think they like scrambled around at the last minute to find a replacement, and I was like the next guy on the list to get this internship. And they were like, yeah, let's take the kid with the weird name, sure, this will be fine. And so I got an internship with MLB.com covering the Baltimore Orioles before they were good. It's awesome. It was Buck Showalter's second year, I believe. And that was incredible, because I never really thought I was good enough at like sports coverage to do this as a living. Like I really didn't. Like I wasn't as pompous as I am now. And basically just kind of like proved to me, it's like, oh, somebody actually believes in me. Like somebody actually thinks I can do this. Like I gotta make the most of this opportunity. So that was an amazing summer. I basically got to cover the team. There's no office. Like, you go to the ballpark. Like, that's your office. And we had, I'll try to find a couple of good stories. We had Zach Britton, he was like 17 at the time. Jake Arrieta was like 18 at the time. They were both guys from the Orioles Farm League. And then Vladimir Guerrero was there. And Vlad is just totally taking this as like, I'm going to get paid $8 million to do nothing. This is going to be fun. I sell jerseys. And Vladimir Guerrero was the only guy in the clubhouse where he had 2 lockers. He was the only guy with 2 lockers. One was for his stuff, and then the other one was for his Silver Slugger trophy. And he just puts it there every day so everybody can see it. And then when he would
just let everybody look at his trophy.
He needed to let everybody know that although I'm roiding and past my prime, I'm still the man. And one day, because that's what the Orioles do, right? They sign like Vlad Guerrero and Sammy Sosa like past they're good, like when they're good, just because our front office sucks.
Oh my gosh, awesome.
Well, not anymore, but they used to. God, this is on camera. I hate that. What was I gonna say? Oh, here's a good story. Okay, so one day I had to do an injury update on Vlad because he took a fastball, or I don't know, a fastball. It was like a pitch, and it hit his hand, and I like had to do an injury update before the game started about like, hey, you know, is he day to day? Like, what's he feeling? So my mentor at the time, her name was Brittany, and she's the full-time like Orioles beat reporter. And she's like, Avi, go over and talk to Vlad. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like, this guy's huge. Like, he intimidates the crap out of me. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, and I'm like, got my like notepad and whatever. And I was like, Vlad, I was wondering if I could get an update like on your hand. And he goes, and he was trying to communicate with me that he couldn't understand me because I wasn't speaking in Spanish. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. Because I viewed it as like a cop-out. I was like, oh, I guess you couldn't understand me. Oh, well. Not 5 minutes later, a more experienced reporter goes over to him, asks him the same question, and the guy just opens up to him. Like, talks perfect English. And it was because I was like this kid and like nobody knew who I was, and he was just trying to screw with me. That was fun. Career-wise, what MLB.com taught me is that the news cycle is 24/7, 365 craziness, especially for baseball. Because once you're done the regular season, even if your team doesn't make the playoffs, like you have winter meetings, you have spring training, you have off-season acquisitions. Like, it sucks. It's like year-round craziness. And I mean, the free agency market is just like an arbitration, and you learn so much stuff. And it's the rules of baseball are really crazy. But it taught me that there's a 24/7 news cycle basically, and the newspaper guys at the time were like, oh yeah, this is a noon game, probably get over around 3:30. He's like, my story's not due till 7. I'm just gonna, like, our stories for .com, for the website, are due 60 minutes after the game is over, no matter when it starts or finishes, no matter what. And that was a real eye-opener for me, is that you need to have your accurate, like you need to have your stuff accurate, and you need to have it first, and you need to tweet it out, and you need to have it online, or else people are going to let you know about it. I mean, reporters are crazy because they are literally competing with each other to be 5 seconds before the other person. Like, you've probably seen on Twitter and stuff, like guys like, I don't know, like Schefter and Rappaport, like these guys that cover the NFL, it's like, oh, I'm going to get this scoop 5 seconds before you, and it's going to make me feel like the man. It's like, no, that's stupid, but to them it matters so much. So transitioning back, so awesome summer with the Orioles. I get back to Indiana. I get to cover the men's basketball team. It's Tom Crean's first season. It's his fourth season. But my first year at Indiana in 2008 was his first season. We're at the fourth. He's got Cody Zeller. He's got Victor Oladipo. Like, this team should wreck. Like, they should be very good, but people don't quite know how good they are yet. Turns out they defy all expectations. They beat Kentucky. I don't know if anybody watches basketball. They beat Kentucky on a last-second three-pointer in Assembly Hall. They play this on ESPN all the time. And Shulman goes, Watford for the win? And it's #1 Kentucky with literally NBA players, and we're the only team that beats them the entire season. And we beat them at home on a last-second three-pointer. And I'm in the stadium, and I've never been a part of something like that ever in my life. I mean, people just lost their minds. They rushed the court. The players are now in the stands, standing on top of the scorer's table. You can probably, I mean, you can find a video of it online easily. And I got to cover that. And the way I go about my job is it's always humanistic, which means I always think of people first. Okay, this is really important. I don't care what you're going into. They're not athletes, you guys. They're people. They're not statistics. These people have lives. They've had things that they've gone through. They have likes, they have dislikes, they have problems. You know, they are actual people. And if you just view them as statistics and fantasy football points, you're gonna fail. Because they don't want to be treated that way. And you shouldn't treat them that way in the media or whatever you're doing. And so for my whole story about that game, I went up and interviewed fans who have been, because Indiana like sucked real bad for 3 years. And for these people to have this redemption, for them to actually be proud of this team, I talked to a guy who was with his grandfather at the game. It was like this generation of Indiana Hoosiers fans. And it was like, what does it mean to these people to, the grandfather gets to have this moment with his son? And so the gist of the column was that this is a shared moment amongst thousands of people across the country. It doesn't matter if you were in the stadium. You know, you felt a sense of pride and you actually felt rejuvenated because of this. And so I think that's what a lot of my coverage was when I covered Indiana basketball, is that I didn't write about the actual game because I didn't know about it. I know about it, but I'm not an expert. Like, if I was good enough to break down every single strategic point, all the mechanics of a jump shot, of why a guy's struggling, then I would be the coach. But I'm not the coach. You know, I'm a guy who's trying to tell you a story. I'm trying to tell you what has happened in this game, you know, by basically just words. One of the things that I learned in college was, this is when Twitter was really becoming big. And people are like, oh, I actually need to like be on this now. And I was very fortunate because for whatever random reason, Indiana basketball fans love Twitter. And they have ever since like early 2000s. And I don't know why. Because it's random, because you're like, oh, you're sure they're not using like cornfields for their internet hookup or something like that? But it's, no, they're obsessed. And they are always hungry for more information because the people have nothing else to do. And so at the time when I'm graduating college, and this is kind of where that saying I came back to, or I said earlier comes back, I thought I wanted to be the next big feature writer. Like, I want to, like, I don't know if anybody knows who Wright Thompson is, but Wright Thompson writes these beautiful, long stories for ESPN. And it is just unbelievable the access he gets. He did that Johnny Manziel story where he's with Johnny and his dad on the golf course just shooting the S. You know, see, censored myself that time. I mean, I wanted to be the next Wright Thompson. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write for a magazine. I wanted to win awards. I wanted to be this guy. And then I was like, okay, now I'm unemployed for 5 months. I thought I was like, all right, this is it. I'm going to get a job covering D1 basketball because I am the man. I'm the best writer at the Indiana Daily Student. Where is my job? And it's like, I remember I applied to like, I think it was covering University of Tennessee basketball. And I started looking at places in Knoxville, like after I applied. So I'm like, I got this. Tennessee's, you know, whatever. I didn't even get an interview, you know. I ended up, over the course of 5 months after college, I was at my parents', and I was just like applying to wherever. I mean, I applied to jobs I didn't even want. I remember I applied to a job in like Wyoming. I was like, come on, Wyoming. I didn't want to move to Wyoming. Well, when you're unemployed for 4 months, you'll take anything. You know, and it was a good reality check. It was like, Avi, you're not as good as you think you are. And that's what led me to Beaumont. And if anybody, who, show of hands, who has ever been to Beaumont, Texas? All right, don't go. I was so happy to get Beaumont, Texas as a job. So this is a situation where good for sports writing, bad for life. And I'll explain this. Beaumont, Texas is the home of Lamar University. Lamar University at the time had Bob Knight's son as their basketball coach. That's my dude. He's an Indiana guy. You know, that was perfect for me. They were nationally relevant. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the speech where he just throws his seniors under the bus, but like, he was relevant. Like, that's a good gig. And then you cover high school football in Texas, which means your audience is not just like the yokels that are like in that community.